Yeehaw.
Yeah, man, so I was heading for California for the second time, to get rich and famous and sell my songs. And, and this trucker picked me up. I finally got out of New Orleans. I used to get stuck in New Orleans a lot there.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I got a song about that too. And, but I fell asleep standing up in a phone booth because all the cops was out in the front of the store. And it was like really late at night, and I was drunk as shit. And I literally, first time ever, I fell asleep standing up, man. And then so they split, and so the next day I catch a ride with a trucker, and he tells me he picked this guy up named Wolf. And he dropped him off right up the road in Port Sulphur, which was heading west for me, so I was like, cool. And he says, you can get a job right in there, man. So he dropped me off, and I went in there. I couldn't believe I passed the physical. I was hung over like a mad dog. And so I get a job on a tugboat pushing sulfur barges up and down the Mississippi.
Awesome.
So me and the engineer took off, because the boat pulls in and you got 4 hours to do something.
Gotcha.
And we got hung up in this bar with these chicks. So we were late coming back, man. So we pull up to the dock and the boat's pulling away from the dock.
No.
So when that happens, you're just automatically fired.
Yeah.
So I said, well, shit, how do I get paid? And he says, well, tell him to send a check to my house. I'm going back to Florida if you want to go. I'll take you to Pensacola. I said, all right, man. I never really hung out in Pensacola, but cool. He said, if you can't go home with a woman from here, he said, I'm going to take you to this bar. And he said, if you can't go home with a woman from there, he said, there's something wrong with you, son. I said, all right. And he was the engineer, on the boat. And so we go to this bar, man, and I end up with this chick, Sherry, and it was cold, man. And we got a little in the back seat, all the windows were steamed up in this old 60 Ford, I think it was. And I ended up staying with them, man, and it was a strange time, and for me. And then, so I went back to where all my stuff was, and I ended up with a car, a Dodge, 68 Dodge, and I drove it back up there with the mattress on the roof that blew off. I just kept going,
Oh, dang.
Anyway, so I get back up there, and I'm hooked up with Sherry, and Sherry's dad, which I didn't know, was the ex-chief of police of Pensacola. Now, Sherry was 18, and I was about 30. No, I wasn't, because I got here when I was 30. So it had to be 28, I think it was, right in there. And so my life was really crazy, and Sherry, I just didn't want to hurt Sherry, and I didn't want her around, because I ended up, living with two hookers. I had rented a trailer, and these two hookers adopted me, man.
Oh,
yeah. And like the bar was like right across the street,
Now they got all the elements.
And my other friends that was heroin addicts, they lived across in the other where the cottages was, and a couple guys from there used to work with me, man. Them guys, a long story. But anyway, yeah, man, from Pensacola, I used to go to Alabama, Biloxi, or Mobile every week, and we'd work for the week and come back, doing sheetrock, mud, I was on the mud crew. And work started interfering with the party again, and so I was dealing weed, speed, and guns in Pensacola on the side, And so Sherry came to me and said, Pat, and this is when I found out her dad was ex-chief of police. I had no idea. And she said, Pat, she said, they're fixing to come down on you. So I go to the bar, right, and I'm like, fuck, I gotta get out of town. And there was a guy named Fuzzy there.
Sounds like a reliable character.
And Fuzzy was going to Boca Raton. And I said, cool, I'll go to Boca Raton, bro, man. So we go to Boca Raton, and I end up getting a job plastering. And I got a little room behind the bar, so I lived right behind the bar. You know, I was addicted to bars. And oh my God, that's where I met Jack, world champion poker player, right?
Interesting.
Yeah. I watched this guy destroy his life. It was incredible. The guy started doing lewds and he was drinking. He had a meat market, you know, Jack's meat market, and he had a house right on the waterway, the inland waterway, you know, one of the cuts, and backyard with a swimming pool. I mean, this guy was a trip, you know. I mean, I go over his house with my helper, you know, because I started working for Grenadier Construction, who actually used to be a Hollywood contractor in Hollywood. You know, he worked on some of the stars' houses, and he looked like a star. I mean, but me and this kid got fucked up all the time, you know. Anyway, I got stories about that. And Gene was my helper, the kid that lived down the street. And I went over to Jack's one day and with my helper, and he says, well, why don't you guys come help me take care of my lady? And then he comes out with a saucer leveled with Coke, you know. This is like the way it was down there.
Benefits.
And his old lady was a fox, man, you know. I don't know, me and Jack did so much coke, we couldn't even get it up, you know what I mean? Gene's the only one that got a little. And then the guy thought I stole his wife's ring. And, yeah, man, that turned into a little scuffle. I got knocked in the pool and ran back to my apartment and got my knife. And then he shows up, man, and it's like, I ain't got the fucking ring. I finally convinced him. I couldn't believe the guy was just, I didn't fuck with him no more after that. But it was right after that he went downhill so hard with the lewds and the booze, you know. Lost it all, wrecked everything, fucking all fucked up. And that's my Boca Raton story, see.
Damn.
On the pat right.